Feeling behind in your 20s is one of the most widespread psychological traps of our generation, and almost nobody's talking about where it actually comes from. Not from your parents, not from your own ambition. It comes from a machine that was built to make you feel exactly like this. And the strange thing is, the more you use it, the worse it gets. There's something kind of funny about building in Minecraft. You start with nothing, you punch a tree, and for a while, you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. And that's fine. Nobody expects you to have a mansion on day one. But somewhere outside of this game, something shifted. And now a lot of people in their early 20s feel like day one already ended. Like they somehow missed the window. Like the game started without them and everyone else is already on day 40, living in a castle, and they're still out here punching trees. That feeling is real. But where it comes from might surprise you. Think about what you actually consume every single day. You open your phone and within 30 seconds, you've already seen someone your age announce their startup funding, someone else drop a course they built from scratch, a 19-year-old with 100,000 followers talking about their journey. And it's all packaged clean, polished, inevitable looking. What the algorithm never shows you is the 3 years of invisible work behind that 30-second clip. It doesn't show you the failed attempts, the boring Tuesday afternoons, the version of that person 6 months ago when nothing was working. All of that gets cut. What remains is the highlight, the arrival, the proof that it can be done young, fast, and loudly. And when that's the only version of success you see, day after day, your brain quietly starts to recalibrate what normal looks like. 22 starts to feel like middle age. 25 starts to feel like a deadline. And the weird part is none of that is real, but it feels completely real. There's this cultural obsession right now with young achievement. 30 under 30 lists, teen founders, the word prodigy getting thrown around like it's something everyone should be by default. And I get why it's appealing to read about, but something about it doesn't add up when you look a little closer. Human lifespans have never been longer. We genuinely have more time now than any previous generation to build something meaningful. And yet the window we're told we have to figure it out has never felt smaller. That's not an accident. That's a design. The anxiety that comes from feeling behind isn't a personality flaw. It's not laziness. It's not a sign that you're less capable than the people you're comparing yourself to. It's what happens when you treat your early 20s like a race, when that stage of life was never meant to be a race at all. It was meant to be a foundation. And the difference between a race and a foundation is everything. Picture this. It's late, maybe 1 in the morning. You're lying in bed and you open your phone just to check something quickly. 20 minutes later, you're 3 years deep into someone's content, watching them explain how they built their life, and somewhere in the middle of it, you start doing the math. Their age, what they'd accomplished by then, what you've accomplished, where you are now, where you should be. Nobody told you to run that calculation. The phone handed it to you, and now, instead of sleeping, you're quietly spiraling. Bro, that moment is not a revelation. That's a trap, and it's a trap that gets reset every single night. The content isn't showing you reality. It's showing you a compressed, aestheticized, algorithm-approved version of someone's life. And your brain, which hasn't evolved to handle that kind of input at that volume, takes it at face value. Here's where it gets a little unsettling. By 2026, these platforms don't just reflect the world back to you. They infer where you should be and serve you content accordingly. If your profile suggests you're in your early 20s and interested in entrepreneurship, the algorithm isn't going to serve you stories about people who found their path at 33. It's going to serve you the youngest, most accelerated version of success it can find, because that content generates the most emotional response. An emotional response is the metric. So you're not just passively watching success stories. You're being fed a very specific, very narrow slice of what success looks like, designed to provoke exactly the kind of anxious comparison that keeps you scrolling. They call it engagement. You feel it as inadequacy. inadequacy. And the more you engage with it, the more of it you get. That's the mirror effect. The algorithm reflects not the world, but your fear back at you, amplified. There's something else worth noticing. Somewhere along the way, being productive stopped being about actually doing deep work and started being about looking productive. The aesthetic of the grind. Morning routines filmed at 5 a.m. Color-coded study schedules posted online. Notion dashboards that look incredible, but might be somebody's main creative output for the week. There's nothing wrong with any of that individually, but when the performance of productivity starts replacing actual skill acquisition, something quiet gets lost. Real skills take time. Uncomfortable, uncinematic, unposted time. The kind of afternoon where you sit with something hard and make very slow progress and don't film it. And so the generation that grew up watching people perform their success is now in their 20s wondering why they feel hollow despite being busy. Maybe because they've been optimizing for the appearance of momentum instead of the actual building of it. Here's something the internet almost never talks about. Late bloomers aren't the exception. Statistically, they're closer to the norm. Research consistently shows that peak creative output across writing, science, philosophy, business often lands in the late 30s or even 40s. Vera Wang designed her first dress at 40. Charles Darwin published his most important work at 50. Plenty of the people we now consider legends spent their 20s doing seemingly nothing remarkable by algorithm standards. The 20s, historically, have been a period of accumulation, of trying things badly, of building the internal architecture that later work gets constructed on. That's not wasted time. That's developmental lag. And in a world this complex, this fast, this overwhelming, you actually need more of it, not less. The early success narrative has a selection bias baked into it. We celebrate the 22-year-old who made it. We rarely track the 10,000 22 years olds who burned out chasing that same timeline. The more you think about it, the whole thing starts to look less like inspiration and more like a pressure system, a way of keeping an entire generation in a state of low-grade panic about time. And people in that state, they consume more, they click more, they buy more courses, more programs, more productivity tools. Your anxiety is valuable to someone, and that's worth actually sitting with for a second. And here's the thing, it's not that ambition is wrong. It's not that wanting to build something or grow fast is a flaw. The question is whether that drive is actually yours, or whether it was installed by 3 years of content designed to make you feel like you're always just barely behind. So what do you actually do with this? Not much in the grand, dramatic sense. There's no system to buy, no morning routine that fixes it. But there are some quiet shifts that seem to help. One is what you might call horizontal growth. Instead of driving yourself to master one thing immediately, because that's the version of success that photographs well, try doing many things badly for a while. Learn something unrelated to your niche. Explore something you can't monetize. Build things nobody will ever see. That's not wasted time. That's how a three-dimensional person actually develops. Another is what happens when you start measuring your progress against your past self instead of against a stranger on the internet. It sounds simple. It's actually surprisingly hard to do consistently because the phone is always right there with a new comparison ready. But even small efforts to reorient that metric tend to change how a week feels. And maybe the most important thing is just accepting that your 20s aren't supposed to look like a TED Talk. They're supposed to be a little messy, a little uncertain, full of things you'll later look back on and reframe as foundational, even the parts where nothing seemed to be happening. There's something Minecraft actually gets right about this. You can't skip the early game. You can't start in a mansion. The whole point is the process of building, slowly, iteratively, learning the mechanics one layer at a time. And nobody looks at someone in the early hours of a new world and says, "You're behind." That would be absurd. But we do that to ourselves constantly in real life. We look at where we are in the process and compare it to where someone else is in their highlight reel. And then we feel this manufactured urgency, this sense that time is somehow betraying us. It isn't. You're just early in a longer game than the internet wants you to believe you're playing. I keep coming back to this idea that the people who seem most settled, the ones who actually build things with depth and longevity, aren't the ones who moved the fastest. They're the ones who eventually stopped letting someone else decide what the clock meant. They stopped treating their youth like a performance review and started treating it like a laboratory, a place to try things, break things, build things badly and then better. And I don't think they woke up one day and decided to do that. I think they just got tired of the anxiety and they quietly started moving at a speed that was actually theirs. Maybe that's where it starts, not with a system, not with a rebrand, just with the quiet decision to stop running a race you never actually entered. Anyway, back to building.